Hey everybody, my name is Jakara and I am the author of the Kids It series TEAS Math Edition. Today I'm here to go over a really important topic that people tend to have tons of questions about, and that's going to be conversions. So what I did was I decided to break conversions down into two parts because there are two different types of conversions you guys are expected to do. Those are conversions within a metric or a standard system and conversions between metric and standard system. So of course today I'll be able to break down the difference between those two because sometimes people have a really hard time separating them, and I want you guys to be able to see certain problems and understand how to be able to execute it. So this first video is going to focus on conversions within a metric system. So when we say within a system, that means that we're going to have the same unit, but it's going to be different versions of that unit. So you know how you guys hear like kilometer or centimeter or millimeter. If you guys notice what our common, well, I should have said kilometer. If you guys notice, the common base word is going to be meter. So those are all going to be conversions within a unit. So people always ask me the same question all the time. Well, I'm having such a hard time remembering how to convert, and I can't memorize everything, and it's really hard. So my biggest tip for conversions within a metric or standard system is to use an acronym. So of course we know acronyms are going to be phrases that we use to be able to memorize certain things. Sorry, my face is itching and I didn't want to scratch it. But acronyms are going to be certain things that we use to be able to memorize certain things. So there are certain prefixes that you guys have to memorize. There are going to be 6 altogether. So I'm going to give you guys an acronym today. Some of you may have heard it, some of you may have not heard it, but it's King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. What that's going to do is it's going to give you all of your prefixes. So of course the K, I'm really short so I can't see. So the K for king is going to stand for kilo. And when we say a prefix is a word that goes prior to a base word, okay? And our base words, of course, I'll get into that with you guys in a few. Henry is going to be H, that's going to stand for hecto. Died is going to stand for deca. And again, these are prefixes. So if you guys notice I have dashes at the end of them, that means that it comes prior to another word. By is going to be our base, which I'll get into in a quick second. Drinking is going to be deci. Chocolate, I forgot that fast. Chocolate is going to be centi, and then milk is going to be milli. Now for this particular test, most of the really common prefixes that we use on a regular basis are going to be our kilo, it's going to be our bases, our centi, and our milli. Those are the most common ones. So those are the ones that I always tell people that they should kind of focus on the most. But when I give you guys the strategy, you'll be able to convert between any unit no matter what they give you. So make sure if you are watching this video that you make note. You can find that particular acronym all over the internet because you want to make sure you know it and love it. Anytime I'm doing tutoring, one strategy that we always go by is that when you get to your test, you write your letters down as soon as you get there on your scratch paper. So if you do get a question like that, it's not hard for you to be able to maneuver. I always tell people, like, you can't get in the space of trying to memorize everything. You have to make it more practical. So acronyms make things more practical because it's a saying. So I'm like, okay, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. Okay, I got K, H, D. By, of course, is my base. Then I have another D, C, M. You got to put yourself in the space to make things a lot easier for you. So when we talk about, where's my marker? What did I do with my marker? Alright, so when we talk about our base units are going to be common units that we all are pretty familiar with. For this test, the ones that you have to focus on the most are going to be 3 really common ones. And this is what we mean when we say base units. So all of the prefixes that we talked about, these are going to come prior to these particular units. And of course, there are more than the ones that I'm going to mention, but these are the ones that I feel like you would be more likely to see. So we have grams, we have liters, and we have meters. So if we add our prefixes to it, like kilo, we have kilograms, kiloliters, or kilometers. If we had centigrams, centiliters, centimeters. So do you guys understand how the prefixes go with our base words? So when we're looking at that particular acronym, King Henry died by, the B is going to be all of our base units. So that's the thing that people have to remember, is that the bases are interchangeable. So it's not one base. There are a number of them, which includes grams, liters, meters, and of course there are other ones that they can use. But again, these are going to be the ones that are going to be the most common that you guys are going to see. So the method that I like to use in particular for conversions within a unit is real simple. It's all about decimal movement left or right. So that's why that particular acronym is so important, because if you remember your letters, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, then it's going to be really, really, really easy for you to be able to convert. So I'm going to give you guys an example, and we'll go through a few examples, because this is the kind of strategy that takes you a while to kind of get accustomed to, because it's that easy. And sometimes when people learn things that are really easy, it's kind of like, that's it, that's all I have to do. And it's like, yeah, it's not really that big of a deal. And of course, for you guys who are watching, if anybody has any questions or comments as I'm going, make sure to drop them. Yeah, make sure to watch them so that you can keep me posted. So for example, if I have 15, well, I probably should use a different color for that so it doesn't look all crazy. All right, so we have 15 kilograms is equal to how many grams? So another thing too is you guys have to know what the prefixes look like when they give it to you, because as you guys can see, there's a kg. So you should know when you see that that's kilograms. You have to know that, because if you don't know the difference between all of our different prefixes, it's going to be really hard for you to use this particular strategy. Okay? All right, so I'm going from kilograms to grams. Well, we know that grams is a base unit. So I'm going to start at kilo, which I know is here. And I'm going to see how many letters I have to move over to get to my base. So I know I'm going 1, 2, 3 units to the what? We move to the right. So that means that wherever my decimal is, which I'll show you guys, I'm going to move it 3 places to the right. So if I know I have a 15, which is a whole number, I can't write upside down. I'll try. All right, no. All right, so if we have a 15, that's a whole number. We know that anytime we have a whole number, I can automatically put the decimal to the back, right? Now, I said from K to H, that was 1, 2, 3. So that means I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 units to the right. And that's where my decimal is going to be. Now, you see how I have these empty scoops? This goes back to our sub-skill of converting fractions, decimals, and percents. And what did I tell you guys? Anytime you have empty scoops like this, you have to put zeros as placeholders. Okay? So in this event, that means that 15 kilograms is the same thing as 15,000 grams. And that's it. So the particular concept is as simple as it sounds. If you can memorize the acronym, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk, when it comes to converting within a metric or standard system, when we say within, we're still dealing with the same, base. We just have different prefixes. So here we have kilograms, so grams, and then we're just going to grams. All right? And of course, if you guys have any questions, let me know. And then we'll go through a few more examples so you guys can see the difference when you have to move forward, when you move backwards, and just go from there. All right, so with our next one, it says 50 cg equals how many mg? So I know C is centi. We know G stands for grams. So 50 centigrams is how many milligrams, right? So I'm going to start at my C, which is here. And I know if I want to go to milli, I have to go to the right, and I only have to go over 1 unit. So what does that mean? That means that my decimal has to go 1 unit to the right. If we're dealing with a whole number, is that a 5? Yep. We know that the decimal automatically goes at the back. So we go 1 place to the right. Empty scoop means we have to fill it with a what? A 0. So that means that 50 centigrams is the same thing as 500 milligrams. And this method is going to work with any conversion within a standard or metric system. It's not going to change. There's no loopholes. There's no trick questions. There's no instances to where it might not work or it may work. This method will work every single time. The only thing you have to know is your acronym, and you have to know when you move left or right. And it's all a matter of counting how far the prefixes are away from each other. All right, let's look at another example. All right, so I have 2.36 DKG is equal to how many DG? So you're like, oh my God, wait, I have 2 Ds. Well, if you guys remember, in our acronym, we also have 2 Ds. You got to know the difference. So our first D is Deca, okay? And that's why we have this DK here, because that's going to be Deca. Our second D is Deci. So here, it only has 1 D. That's the only thing that I think sometimes people have a hard time with. But again, Deca isn't a really common conversion that you guys are going to see on the test. And that's the type of thing that you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Don't overstress yourself, because they're just prefixes. As long as you remember the acronym as I stated, you guys will be perfectly fine. So if I know I start here at Deca, and I'm converting to Deci, so that means I have to move 2 places to the right. 1, 2. So here, we can actually see where our decimal is. So that's what you guys have to know the difference. Just because you see a number, that doesn't mean that you automatically put the decimal at the end, because here the decimal is visible. So we have 2 and 3600ths, or 2.36, however you want to say it. Normally, we put the decimal at the end because it was a whole number, and then we didn't actually see the decimal. So please, let's not confuse that. So I know my decimal is here. I'm going 2 places to the right. So that means that the answer is 200. Is that a 2? Kind of. And 36. Oh, that's ugly. Let me fix it. All right, that's 236 decigrams. And of course, if anybody has any questions as I am going through this, feel free to ask, because I know that people always have a real tough time with conversions, and it's really not that hard of a topic to grasp. Honestly, once I kind of teach it to a person, they're completely fine. And that's the thing, is you guys have to get rid of those mental blocks that put you in a space to make you feel like you don't know what you're doing, and then you really do know what you're doing. But because you already have it in your head that it's really hard, it's really difficult, it makes it a lot it makes it much more harder for you to be able to grasp particular concepts. And again, if anybody has any questions, or if you guys don't understand certain things that I'm doing, yeah, all right, so I'm about to do some more examples where I can show you where we'll go to the left. I was just showing you guys the one to go to the right, just to kind of get you warmed up. But we're going to do 3 more example problems so you guys can kind of see the difference, and then I'll kind of mix them up so you'll be able to see when you know whether to go right or left. And the B actually stands for base. So if you missed the beginning of the video real quick, when we talk about base units, there are 3 particular ones that you have to be familiar with for this test, even though there are more than this, but these are the ones that you're most likely to see. So our base units are going to be grams, liters, and meters. And when we say base units, these are going to be the units that we're going to start with, and our prefixes are what make them bigger or smaller. So everything that is to the right of our base is always going to make it bigger. So like a kilo is always going to make something bigger. Everything that's to the left, is that to the right? Yeah. It's going to make it smaller. But you guys don't really have to understand that particular concept. You just have to know when to move it to the left or to the right. So B is going to be our base units. You have to know your base units when you see them. So make sure you make note of that. So base units are going to be grams, liters, and meters. Okay? All right, so let's do some more examples so you guys can see what happens if you have to move the opposite way. Because it's literally just a matter of figuring out what you start with and then going back to where you end. All right, so our next question says 125 milliliters is how many liters? All right, so we got to figure out where we're starting and where we're ending. So I know milli is here, That's my M, so that's where I'm starting. Liters is a base unit. Now, a quick trick that you guys will see is that anytime they have prefixes, it's always 2 letters. My base units are always going to be 1 letter by itself. So liters will always be an L. Grams will always be a G. Meters will always be an M. Now, see how here we have ML? That lets you know that this is a prefix. Okay, so that's going to be the biggest difference between my prefixes and my base units. My base units will always have 1 letter. My prefixes will always make it 2 or 3 letters if we're dealing with deca. Okay? All right, so we start at milli. We're going to our base. So we're going here. So that means I have to move the decimal 1, 2, 3 places to the, which way do we go? To the left. Dang, it's kind of messing me up back here. All right, so we went 3 places to the left. So again, we have a whole number. So what does that mean? That means that I automatically put my decimal to the end, which is here. And we'll go 3 places to the left. So that's 1, 2, 3. Now, you see the difference between this and what we did earlier. Now, remember how we added zeros as placeholders? That's because every time I did a scoop, they were empty. You see how here this actually contains numbers? You don't add the zeros, okay? That means that our answer is 0.125 or 125,000, however you want to say it, okay? So you guys understand the difference? Really, it all lies in you being able to memorize this particular acronym. And again, if you missed it, it's King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. And I wrote that down at the beginning of the video, so of course you guys can go back and add the notes. So again, if you have not purchased the book, you can purchase the book also, and I have a chart included as well where you guys can see it's like a stair step. So it lets you know if I'm going to the right or if I'm going to the left. It pans everything out and it gives you more than enough. I think this particular section right here has like 150, let me see, 150 practice questions it does. Just to make sure that you guys are in the groove, because that's going to be the most important thing that I want everybody to remember is that, especially for getting really good at the math section, you have to practice. Like, you have to practice and practice and practice and practice, but practice correctly. So sometimes people feel like, oh, well, I do practice problems every day, but are you getting them right? Do you have a strategy? Are you getting it right? Sometimes, are you getting them wrong most of the times? You want to put yourself in the best position to where 9 out of 10 times when you do a problem, you execute it. You don't want to get in a space to where you're using one method, sometimes you use another method, another time stick to your guns, stick to what's the easiest for you to be able to apply, for you to be able to retain, and then you just kind of rock out from there. That's going to be the biggest thing that people have to understand is that you have to study in the manner that's most conducive for yourself. Because sometimes when you study with other people, it may put you in an even worse situation because now you're looking at the other person and you're trying to evaluate how they're getting to execute the problems when that may not be the same route that you would have to take. And that's one thing you kind of want to keep in mind. All right, so our next one is 230 milligrams is how many centigrams. So I know I'm starting here at milli. I'm going to centi, so I'm going 1 place to the left. We know that this is a whole number, so if it's a whole number, we automatically put the decimal at the end, 1 place to the left, which just makes it 20. Oh, that's horrible. That just makes it 23. Could you put 23.0? You could. It doesn't make a difference if it's 23 or 23.0 because the 0 after the decimal doesn't hold any value. Okay? All right, we'll do one more practice problem just so you guys can see. Oh, I really got to work on my handwriting. It's horrible. All right, so this one says 7,400 decigrams or 0.74 decigrams. I don't really like to get too technical because it's like super annoying. Is equal to how many decagrams. So remember what I told you guys, when we see the D's, the difference is DK is going to be deca. So this is deca. Make sure you guys know the difference. And just the D is going to be deci. So I know I'm going from deci to deca. I'm going 2 places to the left. So I see my decimal. So I'm going to scoop once, scoop twice. Anytime we have an empty scoop, that's when we add the 0. So that means that our answer is 0.00 7/4, or 74 10,000ths, whichever way you want to look at it. All right, so you guys understand that if you remember the acronym, King Henry died by drinking chocolate milk. You guys can easily find that on Google to be able to help you guys out. It's really nothing to be able to convert. Conversions are a lot easier than what people make them. I don't know why people have such a tough time with conversions, but if you get you some good worksheets, or if you decide to purchase the book, you'll have more than enough practice to put you in a really good position. I've gotten amazing feedback from the book so far, and of course I can't wait until it's massive everywhere it's supposed to be. So just to give you guys some feedback, just to give you guys a little insight to the book. If you haven't purchased it, or if you haven't heard about it, it's the Kiss It series, which is a series that I created, and the KISS stands for Keep It Super Simple. I was a math teacher for a couple years, and one thing that I did notice about students in general is that a lot of people hate math. People get really bad anxiety with math, and a lot of the times that just comes from poor instruction, poor, what's the word? Like self-esteem, just not believing in yourself, not really wanting to practice and put in the hard work, and it kind of just grows and just gets worse over time. A lot of the times, a lot of people who are studying for the test, you guys are older, you've been out of school for a while, you may have not seen math for a really long time, and stuff like this really makes you guys really anxious, but it's not as bad as you would think. But back to the book. So the book covers every single topic that you guys could see on the math portion, which is 15 different topics. What I did was I broke the book down into 5 clusters. So when I say cluster, what I did was I grouped topics together based on how similar they were in terms of execution, so that it's easier for you guys to be able to retain information, because that's the problem. The problem is that people will study for this test or any test, but specifically with math, they don't retain information. So they may say, oh, I studied so great today, or I've had really great study sessions all week, but come next week, you can't execute any of the problems because you haven't retained it. And a lot of that retention comes from practice. So the book contains over 1,400 practice questions, all handwritten by me. We have cluster reviews. So what it does is, even after you go through each cluster, it's going to give you a review of that whole cluster, which can be anywhere from 3 to 5 topics. And it's going to give you a post as to where you are. It also includes a diagnostic test. It includes 2 full-length practice tests. It includes mid-reviews. Like, I couldn't have put any more questions in here than I wanted to. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had a book that has good content as well as a lot of practice. And that's the biggest problem, is that a lot of the books that are on the market, they don't give you both. Either they give you a lot of practice, but it doesn't give you good explanations, or it may explain it a little bit, but it's only giving you 10 to 15 practice questions. And I aimed to do exactly the opposite, which was give you guys 2 for 1. So if anybody is interested, you can definitely inbox me. If you're not local, I have no problem shipping it to you. The price for the book is $40, which is well more than worth it. Since I've been selling the pre-sale copies, the lowest math score that we've gotten back so far is 75. The highest we've gotten back is 100%. And I always tell people that just goes into what you put into it. So if you're going to be the person and you're going to study like you're supposed to, you're going to use the book as a guide, and you're going to be honest with yourself about your progress and how much you need to study, then you should be absolutely fine. So before I get out of here, does anybody have any more questions about conversions? If you missed it, or you kind of came in mid-video, more than likely I answered the question sometime in the beginning. If I didn't, feel free to leave a comment, because I always have access to this particular page. What I am looking to do is to increase the engagement. So when I post certain things, I ask you guys certain questions. Feel free to comment. If you're practicing sometimes and you don't know how to solve a question, post it on the page so that you can get feedback from me as well as other people who are in the group, because I'm not the only person who knows how to solve certain things. A lot of you guys know a lot more than you give yourself credit for, and you may be able to help others in certain situations. So please, I really want to increase the engagement. My goal is to just get as many people in here as possible so that we can all share and swap ideas and help everyone to be able to pass and reach their dreams of becoming a nurse. If you know anybody who's studying for the test, who needs help, make sure you invite them to the group. Of course, the bigger it gets, the better it is for everybody. If you guys have any files that you want to share, any good worksheets, any good practice tests, make sure that you add them to the page so that we all have access to it, and we'll just go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this actual live, and I'm going to start a new one, which is part 2, which is going to tell you guys how to convert between standard and metric units. I didn't want to mesh them into one video because I want to make sure that when you guys are practicing, you understand to focus on those particular topics separately. So even though they're both conversions, I want you to understand that converting within a standard or metric system is completely different than converting between standard and metric systems, okay? All right, so thank you guys so much, and I'll be right back. If you want to tune in for the next one, and make sure if you got here halfway through, you go back and watch it in the beginning, and drop me a comment or any questions you guys have, and we'll go from there.